Welcome to the Book Asylum podcast. I am JL Foulk. I have with me today Brain Paone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Woohoo!
100%.
See,
Third time's a charm.
the first one was a dress rehearsal. I I have him on today, and yes, it's me by myself because poor Dan has been doing a lot of these all by himself. Because as you all know, I work a lot and I'm a psychotic workaholic. But today I am talking to Brian, who is a horror author, and we started we started recording, and it got all messed up because the Book Asylum podcast would not be us if we didn't have technical difficulties of some kind. And so now we're back and we have good bandwidth, and he's going to tell me some really cool shit about himself that I was just dying over when we were starting this the first time. So, Brian,
Uh,
talk to me. Talk to me. Tell me what the hell, where did you come from?
so when a man and a woman love each other, no, I'm just
No,
so
no, no, not that
um
far back.
uh so just go 9 more months, right? But that's for 9 more months.
Fast
So I was
forward.
born and raised in a little unknown town. Not a lot of people have heard of it. It's out of the way. It's Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Not not
Yeah.
not
No one's heard
not
of it.
steeped in history. Yeah.
Nothing.
Right. And while that is cool, because just saying that you were born and raised in Salem, Massachusetts, kind of comes with its own connotations. However, the throw in the mix is that I also grew up living in a funeral home.
Oh, geez.
So we have
You were
Salem,
born for this,
Massachusetts, funeral
literally.
home, young, impressionable mind, and then people wonder why I am the way I am until I tell them this, and they go, "Oh, it all makes sense." You
Does make
like
sense.
just Yes, you've spelled it all out. So yeah, all right, well. And then I would get the follow-up questions. No one ever wants to know what it was like growing up in Salem once they find out that I lived in a funeral home. Then the questions are always about the funeral home. Like, and I would
Yeah.
say half of my friends, wanted to sleep over every weekend, and the other half of my friends would never come to a sleepover because they were terrified.
I
You
can
know,
believe it.
when we would play hide and seek, I would always win because I was the only one who would hide in the coffins, in the caskets in the showroom. Like I'd get in,
Yeah.
close.
Close
Yeah.
lid. So they're not as heavy as you would think, or
I don't know. I mean, the cheap ones aren't heavy. The ones were, made out of
yeah,
plywood.
the pine box.
Yes. So that was it. So I think that set me up for failure or success. I'm not quite sure which
Eh,
one.
I'm gonna say success because you're writing horror books. So tell me about your writing journey. I want to hear,
Yeah.
and then we'll get all to the creepy details a little later. But I want to hear about your
Okay.
books too,
Sure.
because
So,
unfortunately I did not get the chance to research you as much as I wanted to
well, I'm not
beforehand.
real. This is a hologram fake. None of this is
Obviously,
real. Yeah.
obviously.
Yep.
So I definitely want to know what's going on with your books. Where did you come from? How many books do you have?
Sure.
Um, you know, give me the whole when I wanted, my first book was when I wanted to write. I knew I was after I was reading this book. Give it all to me,
Yeah.
start to finish. Not
Um,
not mommy,
from
daddy
day
loving each
one,
other stuff.
I've always been a horror fan, even as a little kid. Movies.
Hmm.
The very first horror movie I ever saw was Humanoids from the Deep, the Roger
I've
Corman
never
movie.
even heard of that.
Yeah, it was a big late 70s horror film. A Roger Corman movie, typical Roger Corman stuff. And I must have come down. I was little. I must have come downstairs for a drink of water or something, and I remember standing at the doorway to the room where the TV was, and my parents were watching Humanoids from the Deep, and I was like around the corner, but I could still see the TV, but they didn't know I was there. And I think I watched the second half of the whole movie standing there. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. Just
Oh boy.
what is like? I never want to watch a Disney movie again. Like there's
Yeah,
like
what are Disney
creatures like
movies? They
killing
suck.
people. And what is going on? Like this is unbelievable. This exists. So I that was my gateway drug, I guess.
Oh,
The
sorry, man.
Humanoids from the Deep. And then I basically the moment I found The Exorcist and Poltergeist, that was it. I mean, that was pretty much like done. And so I started reading like horror books, that are made for like kids, right? I was reading like there's really nothing overly bad at all, right? And I mean the movies that I was watching had worse stuff in it than I was reading. And
Right.
I didn't really know that adult horror novels existed. I didn't like my brain didn't like be like, oh, maybe there's. I thought we're talking like because I was young. I'm talking like 8 years old. In the 80s. I didn't realize that. I thought all horror novels were what I was reading. Like I thought that was it. Like that was the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Yeah.
And my stepmother and my parents got divorced. And my stepmother bought me for Christmas, under the tree wrapped that year, 2 books. It was a leather bound book of every single word that Edgar Allan Poe had ever written, all in one book. This huge
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
And it was every poem, every essay, his
All
one
of his
novel,
works.
and the plays. I mean, it was just right. So she bought me that. I knew who Edgar Allan Poe was, and so but she also um, bought me a book by this author. His name is Stephen King, and
Okay.
I'd never read the Stephen King book. And she got me The Dark Half because at the time it was his most recent. I guess she
Mhm.
was. I mean, she very well. Looking back on it, I'm surprised she didn't start with The Shining or Salem's Lot or Carrie or something
Yeah.
that is known for. I
Yeah.
think maybe she was in the bookstore looking for like wanting to buy me Edgar Allan Poe, and I think because it was his new book, it was probably at the checkout, and she was like, Stephen King, right?
Throw that in too.
Because even The Dark Half, like today, is still considered one of his lesser known works. Like it's not
Mhm.
when people talk about Stephen King, that usually doesn't come into the conversation. But the
Right.
fact
Right.
that was my first taste into who would eventually become my favorite author is a book that so few people talk about. Um, and it was
I
reading that
believe
that
I did see that movie.
the movie was actually pretty good.
Yeah, it
I mean, it
was.
wasn't awful.
Mm-mm.
It was actually it was a pretty good adaptation, meaning that Tom Holland directed it. I think I could be wrong, but he followed the book very as close as he could to get the book on
Shocking.
the screen. And
Shocking.
he did a good service to the book.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that was when I said so you can do this like as a career, or you can write something like this, and that the world changed for me. Like the world, I never read another stupid kid horror novel. I mean, I dove headfirst into Anne Rice, Clive Barker, Dean Koontz.
Mm,
I mean, I was
my
like
guy.
ferocious. Just I couldn't get enough.
Yeah.
It was, and I'm a bookworm. There's always
Yep.
a book under my armpit, walking around, or just always something, right? And so I started writing short stories in 7th grade, and of course they were all horror, right? I
Of
was just
course.
writing horror short stories,
The teachers
and
are
a buddy,
reading them and like, what is wrong with you?
well, so not quite yet. This is what happened, and I'm going to throw a shout out to a old school friend who I haven't talked to in 25 years. His name is Jason Leck. So maybe I'll try to hunt him down on Facebook and give him this link when you post it.
Okay.
But he was this fantastic artist, like pencil and pen.
Yeah.
Um, what I would do would be I would write a story and I would give it to him, and he would read it, and then he would make a cover, and then I would
Oh,
staple.
he was your seventh
He
grade
was my
cover
first, yes, 7th grade.
artist.
He's my first book design, like my first, right? And so I would staple them, and then I would start, and I would like pass it out to like my school, like my classmates in 7th grade. Like, oh, you want to read my new story? So like every weekend, I'd write another story. Monday morning, I'd come in with it. Jason would make the cover. At like recess or lunch, I'd go staple it together, and then it would be passed around to whoever wanted to read it. So I like
So
this in
cute.
my brain. I already had like a fan base, right? Which is
Yeah.
stupid. It's right,
You've
but I
reached
was the only one,
stardom.
right? So what it did was it like drove me to want to write the next story.
Hmm.
Like I got that taste of, oh wow, some people want to read what I'm writing. So I well, I'd have to. They need my fans in 7th grade need the stories.
Yes.
But here's the funny thing: do you know that I still have right now, to this day, all of those stories? written as they were in 7th grade with Jason's front cover stapled to the front, except for the very first story that I ever wrote in my life. The one that started what I would call kickstarted my author career. At the time, I was only making one copy, and someone spilled like a 2-liter bottle of Coke, and the
Oh.
Coke traveled down the
Oh.
table and
Yeah.
soaked it and disintegrated it. So I don't have that, and there's no way to get that back. It's gone, right?
Right.
But that taught me to make copies.
Yeah.
So I started making like 2, 3 of each of my stories just in case it ever happened, right?
Right.
So I have still to this day every word of fiction I've ever written except for that very first story because it
That
got
is so
destroyed.
cool.
I
That is
remember the
so
name of it. It was
cool.
called The Night Is Young. I still remember the name. I remember
Wow.
the title. I kind of remember it was. Do you remember the movie Monster Squad from the
No.
80s? So
No,
Monster
I
Squad's a
don't.
great. Okay, so it's about Frankenstein, all the classic monsters: Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy,
Uh-huh.
Creature from the Black Lagoon. They all show up in a town, and it's kind of like Lost Boys but with classic monsters.
Oh, that's great.
So it's a group of kids, like middle schoolers, who are the only ones who know that they're there, believe that they're, and they have to fight them to save the
And
town.
they're
And I
fighting them.
remember that, like, yeah, that's if you've never seen Monster Squad and you want just a fun horror movie, that's
I'm gonna have to
lost.
watch it. They
It's
they
fun. Fun.
my guys like Dan and then the other boys that usually are on the podcast with me, they call me 5 minute Jen because I literally get through 5 minutes of a movie and stop watching it or fall
Oh,
asleep.
okay.
So, but
5 minutes.
well, most of the time, if it's a good movie, I will watch the whole thing. But like
Right.
if it doesn't, that's all it's got. It's got 5 minutes to grab me, and if it doesn't grab me in 5 minutes, I'm done. So
All right. All right. Well, I
hopefully,
mean,
this
try
is
it.
a classic though. This is a classic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I
I
do
need
remember
to.
that that story was like had kind of that same element where there was like a teenage, like a preteen boy. I don't know. I don't know why he was out in the middle of the night. I like who like I don't know. I
Nobody
just know that.
ever knows why they're out in the middle of the night. They
Sure.
just are.
So that's the only thing I remember about it. But I would kill to just be able to read that story one more time because I have all the others.
Yeah.
Like just the fact that I don't have it anymore. Right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's a
so
bummer.
when I went to high school, I took all the creative writing classes I could. My creative writing teacher, her name is Mrs. Patch. She was amazing. I think she knew that I wanted to be an author, like for reals, not just, it wasn't lip service.
Yeah.
So she was a little bit tougher on me than she was with the rest of the class, because
Yes.
people were taking it as an elective because they thought it would be an easy A and they just needed the
Yeah.
credits.
People are
But she
idiots.
was hard on me. Like she
Yeah.
was hard on me. And I remember one day waiting after class, the bell rang, and I let all the students file out. And I remember confronting her. She might not even remember this if I ever brought up the story to her, but I remember saying, "Why am I getting B's and C's on all these stories, and everyone else are getting A's, and their stories suck?"
She's like, because I expect
Right?
more from you.
And she looked at me. She's like, "Because you're the only one in here who's taking this seriously, so I'm going to grade you appropriately." And I was like, "Okay, fair
Whoa,
enough."
she
She
knew. She knew.
did.
She
She
had
did.
your
She did.
number.
Yeah. I know she
And
did, and I'm glad she did. And
you
I still
yeah,
remember
you
it
really
after all these
appreciate
years.
people. You really appreciate people like that because it's
Yeah.
like you didn't let me skate by. Thank you
Right.
for not letting me
Yeah.
skate by.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I had some teachers like that too. And I wanted to be an author when I was like 13, 14 years old. And then it very quickly went away to the backside because I was like, I don't have an agent. I'm never going to get an agent. I don't live in New York. I don't know anybody. I don't have a family name. I had all these things that were going through my head that I was like, it's just never going to happen for me. I killed my dream myself before I
Mm-hmm.
even got it started.
You're your
So
worst enemy.
yes, and when I finally became an adult around 45, I published my first book. It took me that
No, good
long,
for
but
you.
I was very glad that I did.
Right.
So,
Well, good for you.
anybody who's listening, who's thinking about it, just do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do it. So,
And then
you
I went to
have,
college. I went to
I was
college
going to say,
in like
yeah,
I majored in criminal justice.
me
But I
too.
yeah. So I've been
Useless
in law enforcement.
degree.
Well, I've been in law enforcement since 2002. So I've been a
Yeah.
cop for I was a cop for 16 years, and now I'm a police detective. So
Oh, I was a CO.
it has fared me well.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you. But I minored in creative writing in American Lit, so I have a certificate. And I took all my electives were working towards that,
Yeah.
which was
Yes.
which was nice. And I just kept writing short stories, kept writing short stories, and then the incident that happened that changed my trajectory and turned in writing short stories for myself into writing as a career was one of my best friends died.
That's tragic.
So, right. And, I kind of talked to his sister. We don't, it's not, I don't, using the word joke sounds heartless, but we kind of kid.
We have a morbid, being in law enforcement, you have a morbid sense of
Yeah.
of
No, I
humor.
know. And being
You
and
really
growing up
do.
in Salem in a funeral home and being a horror author, I think kind of
You
gives
were
you.
destined for
Right?
morbidity.
So, but no, we kid. And I say, if David didn't die, I wouldn't be a novelist.
Right.
So when he died, I didn't know where to put my grief. Like I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had a roommate. I wasn't married yet or anything. I didn't have kids yet. And my roommate said, "Well, you're a writer. Why don't you just write about it?" Like I was basically on a self-destructive path when he died.
Right.
I was like drinking too much. I was not good. It was not in a good place.
Yeah.
He was a drug addict, and I spent 11 years helping, like trying to get him clean, helping him get clean.
Right.
So I had a lot of guilt. Like, could I have done more? Could I,
Right. Knowing that there really wasn't anything more that you could have done.
Right. And she says, the story of your friendship with him is relatable to so many people because so many people are, a loved one is an addict. It doesn't have to be heroin. He was a heroin addict, but it could be anything. It could be gambling. It could be whatever, right? Addiction.
There's so many addictions. Yes.
Yeah. So she said, just, write. She said, why don't you start from day one, start from the day you met him and write your story, your friendship with him, and focus on, what you went through and how hard it was to be his friend. And she said, and write it like you're writing a novel, like don't write it like it's a memoir or a biography. Like write it as if someone didn't know, it would feel like fiction, meaning that,
Right.
so the dialogue is, so it's structured like a novel.
Right.
Well, if you read my book and you had no idea that it was real, you wouldn't be like, oh, this is a biography, or you know what I mean? It's I wrote it with action, and I did the exposition and the trigger moment and the rising action. I used the structure, and at the end, I had 110,000 words.
Wow.
Yeah, 110,000 words. And I was like, I just wrote my first book. And all I did was, and I wrote this, and I wrote it linear, right? It doesn't jump around. I wrote the book is written from the day exactly. So I followed the novel formula for something that really happened to me. But like I said, you wouldn't know it just because I kind of, I did it that way. And yeah, I just, and so I was like, oh shit, I got my first book, and I published it in 2007, sold about 2,000 copies right out the gate.
Wow.
Just doing my own market. This is before self-publishing. This is before Facebook. There was no such thing as running Amazon ads or running Facebook ads or running Google ads or running BookBub ads, right? I had a MySpace page for the book.
Oh, I remember
and
MySpace.
I was selling copies of this book through MySpace.
Yeah.
And I sold about 2,000 in the first 4 months.
Holy cow.
I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't keep up with the orders.
That's amazing.
Couldn't keep up with the orders were coming in faster than I could have these things printed. Yeah, because word of mouth got out. It just, I think it was a relatable topic.
Very much.
And it
not only was it therapeutic for you, it might have been therapeutic for a lot of others.
Yes. No, someone in Russia bought it and asked me for my phone number because he wanted to talk to me. Russia. Wow. And he called me. I gave him my Skype number because I didn't want to give out like my real phone number.
Right.
And he Skyped, and he was like on the phone crying because like his best friend had also just recently died, and he had spent all these years thinking he could save him. And this is a complete stranger, broken English from Russia, who somehow my book, word of my book made it over there to this guy.
Jesus, that's
It's fucking
crazy.
crazy. No, it's, I still think back, and this is why I kid with David's sister. I'm like, he was the springboard for my career. Like, I can't, you
Yeah.
know. And so as awful as
Hey,
that is, and it
that's a
sounds so heartless, but you know.
it's a great silver lining, you know. I mean, yeah, your bestie passed away, but holy cow,
Yeah. I'd
look
like
at
to
all the
think that
people
I'm
that you're
helping.
helping.
Yeah, I'd like to think that the book was, I wrote the book for me, but I published the book for everyone else,
Yeah. Yep.
you know?
Wow.
So,
That's
and then,
amazing.
and it proved to me that I can write that lengthy of a manuscript,
Mhm.
right? So then I
Yeah.
was like, well, why not try to write a novel now, like a novel from scratch, outline, you
Yeah.
know, out of my brain. And that was turned into my second novel, which is called Welcome to Parkview. And that has been reviewed on Amazon. And I love this. My most favorite review of all of my books is from this book. Someone wrote, their whole review was Stephen King meets the Twilight Zone, 5 stars.
Whoa, you
And I
can't
was like,
get
that
better
is,
than
if
that.
anybody's gonna compliment me, like you could write 200 words about how this is your favorite book of all time, and nothing will top
That one
Stephen King meets the
sentence.
Twilight Zone. So
God,
yeah,
that
because
would
my second
be.
novel, yeah, it's a horror novel, but it's more cerebral.
Uh-huh.
I tried to do what the Twilight Zone does, where I try to creep you out by what I'm not showing you,
Yes.
you know, what might be in the shadows, but you know, and whenever I get interviewed about my horror stuff, because I don't just write horror novels, I do write other genres, but
Mhm.
when we focus on my horror stuff, one of the things that I really dislike about horror movies is a good horror movie will terrify me for like an hour, right? Just
Mhm.
scare the Jesus out of me.
Yep.
But the moment that we see what is the monster, I'm no longer scared.
I call it the
And
great
now
letdown.
I just now I just sit back and I feel like I lost, you know, that tension. You
Yeah.
know, I think one of the reasons why certain movies work so well is because you only get tidbits, snippets of what
You
is,
don't
you know,
actually see it.
until the very end. But horror movies that reveal it 2/3 into it, and you still have another third of the movie to go,
Mhm.
and now it's just like some, you know, stupid CGI thing running around a house. I lose. I can't. I just, you know.
Yes. The perfect example for that is Nope.
Oh,
I
I
don't
didn't
know
see
if
it. I haven't seen it. I own it. I actually own it. I downloaded it, but I haven't watched it yet.
it is a very good movie up until you see the actual
Yeah.
object or the issue
Right.
that's at hand,
Right.
and
Right.
then you're looking at it and you're like, first of all, that's what you did with it, and
Right.
second of all, they could have just should have kept it unknown. They
Mhm.
really should have just kept it unknown, because after after that moment when you
Yeah.
saw what the hell it was that you were all freaked out about,
The
you're like,
first
that's it.
So the first movie where I had the "You gotta be kidding me" moment was a
Hmm.
movie called Darkness Falls. They hyped this movie to be like the scariest movie of the year. I went to a
Uh-huh.
horror con in New York, and the director was one of the panel speakers,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
played an extended scene, and we were like standing ovation. I don't know if anybody has seen Darkness Falls, but the moment you see the monster, you
Uh-huh.
start laughing. You go, you gotta be like, oh my god, like
It's not even
it's the
scary.
CGI is terrible. And
Hmm.
then once I've seen it, I, I don't care that like anymore, right?
Right. Now
So
I
when
know
I
what
was
it
writing Welcome
is.
to Parkview, I said I don't want to reveal what's actually happening or what you know, I'm not gonna open I'm not gonna turn on the lights
Right.
until the very, very end. You
Yes.
know, and so it reads almost like a mystery for the reader, even though the book isn't a mystery in genre. To
Hmm.
the I wanted for the reader to spend the whole time in this mysterious what the fuck is going on, you know,
Yes.
type way. And it
Yes.
is a horror book. I mean, it's very horrific things happen in it,
Yeah.
and there are monsters and creatures and the like, but you don't really know what, why, how, or when until the very end. I mean,
And
it does
that's
the
excellent.
show's closed. There'll never be a sequel. It does. you know, when the book's over, it's over. I mean,
It's a
it's a definitive
standalone.
ending,
Yeah.
but shit happens in the last chapter when the whole thing kind of opens up.
Right.
And so that was kind of my plan with that.
Do
And
you find
then
it hard? Do you find it hard to keep people guessing?
I did. That book went through a ton of beta readers,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted them to say, at what point in this chapter did I lose you? And they'd be like, well, you lost me around here. I didn't feel the tension anymore. So I would go back and like delete from that point on and then rewrite it. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
I just didn't ever want the reader to be able to take a breath. You know,
Right.
I wanted it to feel how I feel the first hour of a really good horror movie before everything goes downhill, you know,
Yeah.
through the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
So, and then,
Edge of your seat. Yeah. I get
yeah,
it.
and then, I have so my trilogy, I don't write series. I'm a standalone novelist, right? So I don't do series, but I do have a trilogy.
Okay.
And it's the only one of my books that have a sequel or anything. It's my paranormal crime noir trilogy. And
Okay.
I'll give you my elevator pitch first, and then we can talk about it. Ready? So, ready? So, it's a detective hot on the trail of a Jack the Ripper style killer.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a 300-year-old witch from Salem, Massachusetts, who reanimates the corpses every time the killer kills somebody because she's building an army of ghouls to take over. Well, the detective gets wind that this is happening, and he has to make a decision. Does he side with the killer to take down the witch, or does he side with the witch to take down the killer? And that's my trilogy. So it's a noir, and it starts in 1940s Las Vegas. So it's very much that Dick Tracy,
Yeah.
you know, fedora. Here's looking at you, babe. You know, he calls
Yeah.
women dames. He's smoking way too much, drinking way too much whiskey. I used all the tropes in the book on purpose
Beautiful.
because I wanted the detective to almost be this character of himself.
Yes.
You know, I wanted him to be like every trope you can think of, because when I throw the witch in the mix, it's almost like it's such a juxtaposition of a trope to throw a witch into this like 1940s crime noir that the detective almost doesn't know how to handle her. Like it's almost like he's so blind, you know, like what the hell? Like even he has the reaction, like what the hell is going on? You're like,
yes.
And when the Jack the Ripper style killer, when he kills the girls, you know, he kills the ladies of the night in Vegas. That's the only things he goes after, because he thinks he's cleansing the streets. It's kind of like a like righteousness, and he's a family man. Wife, 2 kids, comes home, loving, you know, like the perfect husband and father, but he's out, you know, killing, you know, the dames of the night every night.
Right.
The witch is collecting these corpses, but they're not zombies. They're ghouls, so they have some sort of intelligence. They're not, you know, just mindless wandering around, you know, like trying to kill other humans. And she has complete control over them. But so every time he kills, she adds another one to her ranks, right? Because now these bodies keep disappearing. Like, where are the bodies?
Right.
Right. We're getting these disappearances of these women, but why are there never any bodies? And,
so it's an all-chick army?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
But spoiler alert, in part 2, she tries to throw a male ghoul into the mix, and she does. And, you know, so we do get that. I did. But in the beginning, yes, she was building because he's only killing females.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
It's kind of by default. And she's kind of tied to the killer, but I don't want to say why, because that would spoil it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why they're connected. Like, why his victims? Like, why is that happening?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a trilogy that spans. It starts in 1940s Vegas, and it ends in 1980s Salem, Massachusetts. So we wind up the 3 books. We go through 40 years of detectiving, killing, ghouling, you know, until the end. We go through, and because she's from Salem, the book, the series, the trilogy bounces back and forth between like Vegas, what's happening there, and then like what happened in Salem with her, like her past, and she retreats back to Salem at a point to, like, you know, take refuge and stuff like that. So and I used, you know, growing up in Salem, I used real places in Salem, like
Yeah.
real locations, like
Yep.
real street names, real Pickering Wharf is a real place, it's in the book. And, House of Seven Gables is a real place. He used it in the book. And so if anybody is reading the book and they Google anything I mention in Salem, it's a place you can go to,
Oh,
So,
sweet. Yeah.
so that was fun to do because that was a fun trilogy to write because it's very much horror, but then it has this noir underneath,
Yeah.
So
I got a friend who well, he passed away last year, but he did these crime noir with some paranormal magic and
yeah,
some, a lot of different aspects to it, but there was a little bit of everything in there and it was so much fun. And of course, he had me as his main character. He had a couple of other friends of ours in our little group as characters, main characters
yeah,
in the book, and it was just so much fun.
that's cool.
Everybody loved it so much that since he's passed, I decided I was going to try and attempt a prequel. So I'm going to try and
Ah,
do the book before the very first one
that's
when
cool.
Detective Sergeant Jennifer Amato is,
Where'd that
before
name come
she,
from?
that's mine.
I know, I know.
So, right? It's just like, so he's got that, and I want to do the book when she's just an officer.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm doing in the midst of writing all these other books.
Other stuff.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. How many works in project do you have going at once?
One.
You only ever do one at a time?
Ever. Ever, ever, ever. It's a strict rule I have.
Such a
Even
smart guy.
I can't because then nothing will get done.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I won't abandon a book if I don't think it's working, but I will
Uh-huh.
never write two things concurrently,
Got
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah. So the trilogy, I didn't say the name. I figure if people are watching this and they're like, that sounds interesting. So it's called Moonlight City Drive.
Yeah.
It was cool. I was tagged by a random person
Mhm.
who was someone that, on Facebook, some group posted list the death in a book that's still like you still haven't gotten over. It still creeps you out. It's still freak. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's a group that I'm not in.
Uh-huh.
But some random person tagged me and then wrote a certain person's death in Moonlight City Drive. Like
Wow.
I was their answer.
Yeah.
So
Isn't
there's a
that crazy?
yeah. So I won't say like what character it was because again, then you'd be like, oh great, now
No
I know that person
spoilers.
dies. But
Right.
but
No
this
spoilers.
this random person tagged me and wrote, the character name, death in
Mhm.
Moonlight City Drive still haunts me. Like I was like, I nailed it then. I
That's
nailed
pretty
it.
cool. Yeah, you've made it. So,
So,
so what do
yeah.
you so you're still working like a day, well, I will call it a day job.
Yeah,
So
I'm a police
you're still
detective.
working and
Yeah,
you are an author still as well. Is that
yeah,
correct?
that is
So
correct.
then um when do you find time to just cuz you said you had, kids and stuff like that. When do you find time when you need to decompress and just be by yourself cuz every once in a while we have to have our zen spot or our zen
Mm,
time. What do
mm.
you do when that happens? When it just becomes too much and you need to just zone out for a minute? What exactly are you doing?
So I own a DeLorean, and
Shut up.
nope. And so a lot of times I'll, either go take it for a ride or I'll go to a buddy's house with it and, we'll, just, yeah.
Does
So,
it have the
um,
flux capacitor?
so I have a flux capacitor,
That's
yes.
great. Yes.
But so the flux capacitor, is removable, because it's really distracting when driving because then
Oh
it's
yeah, I
like,
bet
it's
it
like
is.
someone having like a pen light in my eye.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I
connected
bet.
by two bungee cords so it can come in and out really quickly. And I only put it in when I do like conventions
Yeah.
with the car. So
Yeah.
when I do conventions with the car, I have the hoverboard, the flux capacitor, the sports almanac. I got the light up shoes, the outfit, and I basically dress up the car. So I joke.
Wow.
I say that the car is cosplaying,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But because it's my semi daily driver. When I drive it regularly, none of that stuff's on it. It's just a DeLorean.
Right.
It's a stock DeLorean when I drive it daily. But
Do you have a
so I
Mr.
only
Fusion?
no. So the thing with that, which is what a lot of people don't realize, is in order to install the whole back stuff,
Mhm.
the car now becomes is no longer street legal.
Yeah.
You have to smash out 3 windows, and you've got to drill holes in the stainless steel body.
Oh,
And
wow. It's
I
just a
will
lot.
be damned if I smash
Right.
voluntarily any of my windows and drill holes in my stainless steel body just to add stupid props to the back of my car.
Yep.
So no,
Nope.
do not do that.
Completely get it. I didn't know it was that intense.
It's a
And
it's a and it adds a couple 100 pounds of weight to the rear of the car, and the engine is in the rear. So now you're putting
mm,
a couple hundred
extra
pounds on
weight
top of
on
an
axles.
already, yeah. So it's just and it's not street legal. Like you can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I would not touch my car.
Yeah.
So
I
everything
don't
that I
blame
do
you.
to my car at conventions or festivals can be put on in 30 minutes and then taken off in 30
Removed.
minutes. You know?
Smart.
Yeah.
So do you do a lot of Back to the Future shows and stuff like that?
I do. So if you go, so on my website, which is on the ticker, one of the
Mhm.
tabs on my website is for my car, and there's a form that you can fill out where you can rent my car. If you want me to
That is
come pick
cool.
you up and take you for a drive, you want it for a birthday party, you want it for a graduate. I've done graduations, weddings, proms. I've done parades. I've done, oh my God, I've done so many clubs have rented me to do like if they're having like an 80s theme like
Yeah.
dance night. So
How
there's a tab,
cool.
and I've had a lot of stars. I've had a lot of stars sit in my car, celebrities.
Mhm.
And if you go on my website and you click the DeLorean tab, there's a picture of every celebrity that's ever sat in my car, but
Nice.
with their name and like what they're from, in case you're looking at the photo and you're like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say that if my favorite celebrity so far that has sat in my car, not only because I was like super starstruck,
Yeah.
but he was also so nice and wound up talking to me for 15 minutes. Like some of the celebrities who I get to sit in the car for a photo,
Mhm.
get in, I take the photo, they thank me, and then they're off. Right?
Right.
Like they're doing me a favor. They know they're doing me a favor. They got better things to
Mhm.
do, you know. But the one guy that blew me away, just wanted to sit and talk was Barry Bostwick from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Really?
Barry sat in my car. I took about 50 pictures, and then then he let me like get down on the knee and take pictures I gave my phone to someone else so like we could get photos together of him sitting in
Yeah.
my car. And he just sat there and genuinely was interested in what I had to say. Like I didn't feel like he was just going through the motions,
Yeah.
right?
Like
So if you go on my
someone you could
website,
tell.
when,
Yeah.
when we hang up, right, go on my website, click on the DeLorean tab, and go look at Barry Bostwick sitting like it was just it. He left, and I was like shaking. I was like, oh my God, that really just
I
I like it
bet that
takes a
was
lot for me to
probably a
get to that point. I was
huge
like,
endorphins rush.
I was
Holy
like, oh my God, that was
crap.
Brad Majors just sat in my car.
Brad.
I'm a huge Rocky fan, so but and then the yeah, so I've had music people, if I'm an event, if the car gets hired to be in an event where there is a celebrity, usually I get to mingle with the celebrity maybe like before the event opens or whatever,
Right.
and sometimes I'll be like, hey, do you mind just sitting in my car for like one photo?
Yeah.
Brian Holleran, who was in Clerks.
I
You
think
know
I
the
know
movie
who he
Clerks?
is.
He's the main character.
Hated that. I
So
hated that movie.
okay,
I
so
hated it.
he was
But I
super
know
nice
who you're
too.
talking about.
Yeah, he was so nice. He was like
Was he?
fantastic. Oh yeah,
Aw,
just so happy to do it.
that's
Um,
cool.
but
Yeah, there's
yeah,
some of them that are real
that's kind
pieces
of
of
fun
work.
to do that. Yeah.
So how often, how many books are you still publishing?
Oh yeah. So my latest book came out March 8th. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you. And my editor just gave me a July 1st deadline for my next book, if I want it to be out for the fall schedule for
Got it.
the fourth quarter. So and I've had the same editor from day one. She's been my editor through my entire career, every book I've
Aw,
ever written.
that's
So
good. I like
me
hearing
and
that.
Denise, we have this like really good relationship where
Hmm.
we're at the point now where I send her my book, and I even have to like give her like notes. She knows
Hmm.
exactly my tone, how I want things to sound. She,
Yeah.
like I was really big on finding my own voice.
Yes.
as an author, and I don't change, even though I write in different genres. I have a historical fiction war novel, and
Oh.
I have an urban crime thriller novel,
Hmm.
and I have my horror novels, and I have a time travel novel. Um, Even though they're all different genres, very different topics, you'll
Right.
know that you're reading one of my books because my voice is the same, my tone. And
Yeah.
I love that she knows my voice, knows when I'm deviating away from my voice too
Hmm.
much. Like a little bit's okay, right? Because you want a
Right.
little bit of different, but like I feel that really good authors who write in multiple genres, um, their readers will read everything they write because they like the author's voice. They like the way
Yes.
the author writes. And
Yes.
so I'm building my brand off of my voice, not the genres I write in.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's a novel
So
idea. Haha.
so no pun intended. Um, so having the same editor is great. So she said, Brian, if you can get, my work in progress, right, the one I'm working on now, to me
Hmm.
on my desk by July 1st, it can be out for the fall con festival schedule.
Right.
So the cons, because I do a lot of cons and festivals. I did 26 last year, book
Holy
festivals.
crap.
I know,
I'm
but
literally stoked that I'm doing 2 this year.
oh yeah, 26 was my, yeah, so 26 was my record. And I would be doing not as many, but close to that this year if I didn't have to go to Missouri for 9 weeks. Like this is killing me.
Yeah.
I've had to say no to so many festivals and cons.
Yeah.
But spring is the second busiest time for cons and festivals, but the fall is number one. When the fall hits, that's when like all the book festivals and cons happen. So so I got to get my book, which will be my 10th book. This
Mhm.
one that I'm working on now will be number 10. If I can get it done and tour by July 1st, then it will be ready for the fall schedule, which is what I'm hoping.
Sweet.
So,
So, do
yeah.
you self-publish now, or are you still traditionally published?
Traditional.
Okay.
I Scout Media.
Okay.
There's Scout Media has me, a author from England, an author from Cleveland, an author from Baltimore, an author from Connecticut. Um, so Scout Media, those are the authors that they have signed, but
Mhm.
they also put out a ton of anthologies, and each anthology has 20 to 30 stories of all different authors. So
Right.
there's probably a couple hundred authors that are involved in the anthologies, but those authors aren't signed to the press
Right.
as an author. You
Right.
just so it's yeah, it's so
That's crazy. I literally used to live up the road from Cleveland, the
okay.
other way, more
Yeah.
west in Toledo. And actually, that's where my book is based in in
Oh,
Toledo,
really?
Ohio. Yeah.
Oh,
So I was like, they say write what you know. First book,
that's what they
that's what I'm
say.
doing.
I know.
So-
I know.
and every place that's in my book, in my hometown, is an actual place
Yeah.
and an
See, it's
actual
good.
street. Yep, I did the
Yeah.
same thing because I was like, I'm not gonna have somebody be like, why did you change the names?
Right.
Because I'm really not that proud of Toledo. It's the armpit of America.
Yeah. I thought New
Just
Jersey was the
saying.
armpit.
No, 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 no. We're pretty bad. We're pretty
Yeah,
bad.
it's so if like anyone's reading my Moonlight City Drive trilogy, all the parts that take place in Salem, if someone's like, hey, I want to go to Salem one day, or I'm planning a trip to Salem, they can Google Earth anything in that book and be like, oh, I want to go there. I want to visit. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know?
That is really
Yeah.
awesome. I think it brings some we all know that this is it's fiction. We all know it doesn't really happen, but it brings some realism to it, you know.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like a
Yeah.
real life thing, right? You know where it, you know it's happening right in front of you or in your city or whatever. But
Yep. Yep.
um so do you have plans to continue writing in just horror, or are you going to do a bunch of different genres like you already have done?
Yeah. So my book that came out March 8th
Mhm.
is my first collection of short stories.
Okay.
It's 20 short stories that I've written between 2015 and now, that I wrote in between writing novels just to like keep my brain working. And then I realized that I had enough of these short stories uh, that if all compiled are is
Yeah.
a book size, right?
Right.
And once again, going back to my favorite author, Stephen King, every time he has enough short stories saved in his computer, he puts out a collection of short stories. So I'm like, if it's good enough for him, if he's doing it,
It'll
why
work
can't
for
I?
you too.
Right? So I was like, screw it, I got enough short stories, kind of like empty the vault type thing.
Hmm.
So I sent them to my editor, to Denise. I was like, Denise, I'm giving you my next book. It's not a novel. It's my first collection of short stories. She's never edited any of my short stories before. They were on my computer, you know, and so that came out March. That's when it came out in March, and that's called Selective Listening. And out of the 20 stories, I'd say 70% of them are either horror or macabre or some
Hmm.
sort of um, speculative fiction, and then the
Yeah.
others are either sci-fi or fantasy, just like that. So the book is more than 50% of that. Those short stories are horror. But to answer your question, the book that I'm writing right now, the Get It to Me by July 1st book,
Yeah.
it's a cyberpunk dystopia novel. So think like Johnny Mnemonic meets Mad Max.
Oh, that'll be
So
interesting.
not horror, but there's going to be some,
I mean, horror
I
doesn't
guess,
necessarily mean blood and guts.
right, yeah. It's
I'm
it's
sorry,
going to
machines
be
are scary too.
right, 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 right. Yeah. So I've already started writing it. Outline is done. I'm already writing it, and
Hmm.
I'm enjoying it because I've never written anything cyberpunky or dystopia. All of my books
Yeah.
either take place in the today or in the past, right? Like it
Uh-huh.
happened,
Yeah.
I've never my time travel novel takes place in 1981 and then in 2095, and so he goes back. Those are the only two times he can go back and forth. But it's
Okay.
not dystopia. It's very much kind of this happy, shiny future, like Jetsons,
Ah,
so
yes,
so,
yes.
in that book, it's the future is more like the Jetsons, or if you've ever been on Spaceship Earth at Epcot, like that whole like kind of feel. But so this is my first time trying to write where like the Earth has gone bleak, you know,
Yeah.
almost. So I was telling an author friend of mine, her name is Marissa D'Angelo. I guess I should now probably tell her that I'm mentioning her. And I was telling we do all the conventions and cons together. She's one of my
Hmm.
my con buddies. She does horror too. She's fantastic. In fact, you should probably have her on the show. She'd love to do it.
We should.
Um, she writes. She's from Connecticut, right? And
Hmm.
uh, off the coast of where she's from is a island called Charles Island, and
Hmm.
there's all these myths and legends that really exist about Charles Island.
Oh,
She's
sweet.
made a career out of turning those myths into novels,
Oh,
and it's
smart.
a real place. Like, and these are steeped in the real, like, myths and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got off topic, but I
No,
was
no,
telling
it's
her
okay.
he's one of my springboard. Like people
Yes.
like bounce ideas off of.
Yep.
And when I was explaining it to her, she goes, "Have you ever read the Maze Runner trilogy, the Maze Runner series?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." She's like,
Right.
"It doesn't sound like the Maze Runner, but I think if you read it, it will help your writing in with you writing this book, because this author, if anyone's ever read the Maze Runner, it's dystopia, it's future sci-fi dystopia, and
Yeah.
it's so good. He gives you the sense that the world is a barren wasteland, and
Yes.
that's what I'm going to try to do with my book. And so I'm glad that so she let me borrow it. She gave me the trilogy. She like, next time I saw her, she's like, here's the trilogy, read them. And
Here's
I'm
your
at the
homework.
very end. Yeah, what's that?
Here's your
What'd you say?
homework.
Yeah, here's your homework, right? So I'm at the very end of book two, and I'm so glad that she suggested that I read these before I really get into the thick of writing this
Yeah.
book, because not that like I'm going to copy anything he wrote, and
No.
not even that I'm using it as an inspiration, but I see, like, the visuals I'm getting from reading The Maze Runner
Yeah.
is helping me visualize my universe.
Yeah,
In
what
in
you
what I
want,
mean?
your ideas that you can implant and take
Yeah,
away from. Yeah, no,
yeah,
I am a full believer in, it's kind of like I was talking with a narrator and I asked him, I said, "Do you listen to other narrators to kind of get an idea of what you think the people are looking for, or do you listen to, like do you watch certain shows because you're looking for a particular dialect or a particular twang in your voice that you need to have?"
Right.
for a
Right.
particular character. And he was like, yeah, I that's kind of like homework that I do. And I
Right.
think it's important that even though we're authors, we still get a grasp on what are the genre that we're writing in, what it is,
Yes.
what we're
Right.
expected to write. It doesn't
Right.
hurt to go outside of that box, but it's definitely homework, and it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
definitely cool. It's needed.
Yeah. And another thing too, like I never would have picked up these books
Right.
otherwise, and
Right.
I love them. Like so, I found reading. I found a trilogy that I really enjoy that I
Yeah.
wouldn't have if Marissa didn't be like, here, read these because I think it'll help your writing of what you're working on.
And it's so
So
funny
yeah, it
because
was
usually authors of we're surrounded by tons and tons of books, and we're using them
right.
as kind of like a oh, it just helps, and it helps you kind of get off the ground with some brand new stuff if you're not used to
Hmm.
it. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
super important. I'm glad she
Yep.
had you. Glad she gave you that idea and kind of pushed it on you. So
They
we're
say.
actually
Okay, I was gonna say one more thing, and then because
sure.
this is kind of important for multi-genre authors like me. They say you're
Yeah.
supposed to write what you like to read,
Mhm.
but I love to read all genres. So that's why I knew that I would never be a horror novel list
Right.
or a sci-fi novelist or I love
Cuz you like them
reading
all.
all genres. So that's why every time it's time to write the next book, I kind of go, oh, I'm kind of in the mood for a, you know, urban
Yeah.
thriller. So then I wrote, Packet Man, which is my urban thriller novel, just because
Mhm.
I wanted to sink my teeth in that genre, because
Mhm.
so
I think that's a good idea though, because I don't, not to say that, it gets old, but sometimes you get burnt out in one
on the
particular
yeah,
genre, I would
right,
think.
right,
So I
right.
think genre jumping is very good and it's broadening your horizons.
Mhm.
But we're winding down to the hour. And I wanted to find out, where can people find you? We have your website scrolling across the bottom, but where else can we find you?
I am all 9 of my books are available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. Every single place that sells books. I am wide. I am
I know
not
there's a
like
lot of people that are going to be happy about that
yeah,
audiobook.
everywhere. Audio, I have contracts with with Audible, Spotify, Findaway, Chirp, iTunes, you name it. And my ebooks are everywhere. Barnes Nobles, Books a Million, Amazon, Target, Walmart. If you have any listeners in the UK, a whole bunch of UK stores, that don't exist here in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am wide distrode. So if it sells books, if they don't have it on the shelf, they absolutely have it in their computer system to be ordered. You can also order it right from my website. If you order any paperbacks from my website, they come signed and signed for you. So I didn't just sign a box of books and then I just
Yeah.
throw them in a mailer. I actually put the date on it so
Oh,
that
nice.
that matches up with when I bought it. Like this is when he signed
Yeah.
his name. So underneath my
Nice.
signature, I always write the date that I signed. That way, it's a little bit more. That it's not. I didn't just get a box of books, sign them, and
Right.
then
It's not a
oh,
stamp.
when an
You're
order comes
right.
in, I'll send one out. I signed it as like it's yours. This one's for you.
Right.
So, but yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
in my con schedule, my appearances, if anybody wants to come out, because I have the DeLorean at most of my appearances. I have the
okay.
car next to my booth. So there's my author table with all my books, and then
Yeah.
there's the DeLorean. So if anyone lives in the DC area and they go on my website, my whole con schedule is under upcoming events. So you can, someone wants to pop out and say hi, and you
Do you
know
mainly stay East Coast con?
yeah, I have done some in California.
Uh-huh.
Um, I do. I usually, if I travel outside the area, it's because I've been asked to be a speaker at a writers conference.
Okay.
When I say festival and conventions, we're talking about you're a vendor, right? You have a
Yeah.
booth, you're selling
Yep.
your books.
Yeah.
I do. I do a handful of writers conferences every year
Okay,
where
but you
I'm
haven't done any conventions over this way?
No, all my conventions are East Coast, but I do fly around the country when I get hired to be, do a block at an actual writers
Right.
conference, where it's a
Right.
bunch of authors learning how to do something, and so
Right.
I run the marketing portion because that's my forte. I run Facebook ads, Amazon ads, book by book, like they're going out of style, and this is where I've made my career off of learning how to make effective ads.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah.
That is awesome, actually. So are you on Facebook or do you have an author page on
Yep.
Facebook at all?
Yes. Yep. I it's Brian. It's yeah. If you type in Brian Paone author, I believe I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. Yeah. Basically, if it's yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and I have a series called Reading and Writing in a DeLorean, where it's me sitting in my car, in my DeLorean with the door up in my garage, and I'm either giving an update about what I'm doing or I'm reviewing a book I just read.
Oh, that's cool.
Sometimes other authors, like self-published authors, will send me a copy of their book so I can
Hmm.
read it and review it in the DeLorean. And then
Yeah.
because so that they
Oh,
share
yeah,
it and
that's
like, oh
cool
look,
shit.
like this guy sits in the DeLorean and reviews books, like
Right.
So,
Right.
and then when I do conventions and festivals with the car, I'll get authors before the doors open, and I'll have them sit in the DeLorean, and I'll sit in the DeLorean too, and I'll do interviews in the car.
Oh, that's
So,
sweet.
so you're being interviewed in the DeLorean,
Yeah.
right? And I have the camera set up, so both doors are up, and I have the
Uh-huh.
camera set up on the passenger side shooting in, and I'm in the
Hmm.
driver's seat, and the person I'm interviewing is in the passenger seat, and we're just in a DeLorean talking about their book,
Shooting the shit. Oh
Yeah.
my God. That is the
So
coolest thing
that's
ever.
reading and writing in the DeLorean is my YouTube series, and yeah, so that's kind of fun.
That is cool. I will definitely get me and my husband to check that
Hey, if
out.
you're ever in the DC area, come on, I'll interview you. You can be on. You can
I
be
would
on.
love to. I unfortunately am in Arizona.
No,
We
no,
stay
no.
well, no, I can't say unfortunately. I absolutely love Arizona. It's beautiful out here. Um it beats being in Ohio in this crappy weather. So,
Mm,
it's been chilly here, but it's not been like Ohio cold. I'm good.
yeah, yeah.
But I want to thank you so much for coming
Well, thank you
on
for having
and
me. Yeah.
thank you for squeezing us in on,
Oh yeah,
right
sure.
before I know you were getting ready to, take
I am
off
getting
and
ready to
leave.
leave.
And I just really appreciate it because I definitely want to get your information out there
Yeah.
to get you some
Thank
new
you so much.
followers too.
Thank
So,
you. I love it. No, love
yes,
it.
we that's what we strive for at the Book Asylum podcast, So, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Say
Thank
bye,
you.
Brian.
Bye bye.
Bye.